Now to our regular panel, Michael Kroger and Stephen Conroy. Michael, what have you made of the drama, the saga of this past week, the Morrison secret ministerial portfolios?
Well, perhaps it's because I haven't been a cabinet minister that I think the reaction has been a total overreaction. What did Morrison do? He appointed himself a minister, or through the Governor-General. Should he have told his colleagues? Of course he should have told them. Should he have told the public? Of course he should have told the public, okay? But the outrage that's been perpetrated, I think, is beyond anything that can be taken seriously. And of course, Albo is now using this as this is almost like a threat to democracy. I mean, if Scott had done something like banning people from attending religious functions, which has been a tenet of Western civilization for hundreds of years, if he'd banned people from attending funerals or weddings, if he'd banned people from moving interstate, going interstate, if he'd banned people from visiting sick relatives, well, that would be one thing. But he appointed himself a minister. He used the powers on one occasion, and we have people calling on Scott to go from Parliament. Well, if that's the most outrageous thing Morrison has done, then I must be completely out of touch, because I think this is completely inside the Beltway. And if you asked ordinary Australians, they'd say, well, if that's what Morrison did in the time of a pandemic, is that worth being thrown out of Parliament for, or resigning from Parliament for? I don't think they'd think anything of the like, Kieran.
Stephen Conroy?
Well, look, I mean, the real outrage and demands for him to resign from Parliament are coming from members of the Liberal Party.
One member.
Cabinet ministers in the Liberal Party.
One member.
That's because what he did was so deceitful, such a sign of distrust of his ministers. I mean, firstly, he says, I forgot to tell Josh Frydenberg. Josh was staying in the lodge with him for a year and a half during the pandemic. The bloke staying down the corridor, he forgot to tell, I've just decided to become co-administrator of your portfolio. And when the former Prime Minister Morrison tries to pretend, I was just a reserve power. Well, he needs to read the document the Governor-General signed. It says administration. So stop pretending that you weren't the co-administrator of these departments. And I can absolutely understand why cabinet ministers are humiliated and outraged by what Morrison's done, and worse, his ongoing refusal to apologise to the public. The people he deceived the most continues just a great behind the scenes for all the Liberals. I mean, if this comes to a move on the floor of the House of Representatives to send him to privileges for misleading the chamber, which he did repeatedly almost every day when Parliament sat, I'm going to be fascinated to watch who turns up to defend him, what they've got to say, and who doesn't turn up to defend him.
Well, he's copped flack from a number of his own colleagues, including Stuart Robert, Michael, who's one of his closest friends. But as Stephen said there, the calls to leave Parliament are from his own former cabinet ministers, or at least one of them publicly.
Well, I think one, and I don't agree with Karen on that. I admire Karen, but I don't agree with her. What's happened here? Morrison appointed himself to these positions in a pandemic. Should he have told people? Yes. Should he have told the public? Yes. But, Labor and some on our side are trying to make this sound like the greatest constitutional crisis since 1975. I'm sorry, I just don't
Michael,
see it. He exercised these powers once.
He appointed himself as the Treasurer when there was no lockdown.
Yeah, I know, Stephen.
Just a couple of weeks before
Stephen,
Josh did the budget. There was no lockdown. There was no pandemic crisis when he did Treasury and Home Affairs. Like, what was that about?
And he never exercised the powers. Should he have told Josh? Of course he should have. But for you people and some on our side to make this sound like it's some great international constitutional scandal, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I mean, your government in Victoria and other state governments banned people from practicing their religion. They tried to arrest religious Jews.
They're called super spreading events.
Trying to practice their religion.
They're called super spreading events.
Oh, were they? Right, okay. So let's
super spreading events back then. Before people were vaccinated, these were super spreader events. Just like where it all started in Europe was from church gatherings. Church gatherings helped seed the European outbreak.
They were banned.
Just a fact, Michael, but you just keep banging on about an irrelevance.
Stephen, let me ask you then. Let me ask you, Stephen, about Labor's approach here, because Michael has made his point clear, and obviously a lot of Liberals disagree with him, but it's a valid view, and I'm sure many people, others have said the similar points to me today, Stephen. Does the Prime Minister need to be cautious about the way that he handles it? He believes it's a serious parliamentary and constitutional, our system, an issue in relation to our system more broadly, but does he have to be careful the way he deals with it so that he gets back to bread and butter issues quick smart?
Well, look, the two big issues in the last election campaign were cost of living and integrity. So let's not pretend this is not a big issue. This was front and centre, the integrity, the way that the Morrison government trashed the norms of Parliament in so many different ways. And this was a significant issue. So the Australian public deserves the truth, not the mealy-mouthed excuses with more holes in it than a Swiss cheese yesterday. I mean, that was a comical hour. I mean, he kept saying, we, and Andrew Clennell, fantastic job. He skewered him. He goes, wasn't the Treasurer, it wasn't the Deputy Leader, it wasn't who's we? And everyone in the room laughed. They were laughing at him. I mean, Andrew just skewered him. He goes, the government. It's like, it wasn't the government. You didn't do it for the government. You've made it perfectly clear you didn't trust the government. So the truth is necessary. Albo has got some significant events coming up. This Jobs Wage Training Summit is the most fundamental shift we need. You've seen, again, wage rises. Real wages are falling in this country. The Reserve Bank's official policy for the next 2 years is they want to help drive real wages down. Mortgage increases from Reserve Bank interest rates are going to drive real wages down. That's a stated position. I'm just shocked that they're so blatant about it. But the Jobs and Training Summit is going to be really important. The Libs want to dismiss it, Talkfest, all the rest, like the one when we were last in government. But this actually, I think, is going to be a really significant event.
Stephen, Michael, we've got to go. I appreciate it. See you next week.